You have Spotify open.
And welcome back. Hello. Hi, Brooklyn. Hi, Sam.
Hi.
Hey.
Welcome, everyone, to this content power hour. I get to be the illustrious host today. Sadly, Nick's internet just died, and not in like a reset your router sort of way, like a big problem sort of way. So it's normally four of us here on the content power hour. I have his notes, which I will share as a part of our roundtable discussion today, but he will not be joining us. But yeah, I mean,
Wow.
I know, womp womp, so sad. Well, if you're here, make sure to drop a hi in chat. We'd love to see you. I'm excited for today. How about you guys? Two more companies.
I am. These were really fun.
I'm excited.
This is going to be a good time. I think for anybody who's new or the companies who haven't gone through the gauntlet before, the point of the Content Power Hour is to audit companies' full inbound engine, basically from their messaging to their content, their social presence, and then their inbound sales process. So it's a fun sort of marketing / sales collab, co-hosted with our lovely friends at Beam, Brooklyn and Sam. Thank you for always joining and participating in this. I see Tara's in the chat. She's ready at GetAccept. Love it. Woohoo!
I see Nick in the chat too. I don't know.
I know.
I feel like he's maybe making excuses. If you can tune in, Nick.
Yeah, I know. Can't you stream?
He can hold up his phone, though.
Yeah, just like, hey, that's funny. Is there? Oh, okay. I have a question of the day just to kick us off. Something a little fun, lighthearted. This is from the other day. Zoe Hartsfeld was on the show, and this is the most random question. But when you put on socks and shoes, do you do sock, shoe, shoe, or do you do sock, shoe, sock, shoe?
Two socks and then two shoes. I feel like the other way is just insane.
Yeah.
You're just going to have a barefoot?
So both Christine and Zoe did sock, shoe, sock, shoe. So they did one sock, then one shoe, then the other sock, then the other shoe. And I was flabbergasted. Because I am also a sock, shoe, shoe person.
Yeah.
That is hilarious.
As it should be. What
right.
Sam?
Yeah, I'm just trying to imagine having my full sock and shoe on and the other foot being bare still.
Right? Isn't that weird? I love forgive me, I believe Marcio's comments are you a psycho? Like sock, shoe, shoe.
Is it more psycho to do shoe and no socks?
Oh, yeah. Actually, yeah. How do we feel about like sockless shoes? Sorry, this is such a random tangent. Like, I feel like sandals, of course. I don't know about socks and sandals, but like, seems appropriate.
They can tend to stink more off quickly, but you know.
Mm-hmm.
I like not wearing socks. So.
I like Alex's. That's the real take. My toddler does sock, shoe, takes off the sock, my shoe, then refuses to go anywhere.
That's a great comment. I love that. Well, after all of this psycho chatter about socks and shoes, let's get into it. The way that this works, usually there's four of us, but today there's three, is each of us have an area we're responsible for. So for those of you who are new to this, I'm usually responsible for messaging. Brooklyn is responsible for content. Sam is responsible for social. And Nick, when he joins us, is responsible for the inbound sales process. I have his notes, so I'll be resharing some of the highlights from him at the end. And at the end of it, each of us gives a score out of 10 for that area. And so the total possible points for this audit are 40 points. And I have to say, a full disclaimer, we're pretty ruthless. I think the top anybody's ever scored was like a 25 or a 26, which is pretty good. I don't think we've ever had like a 30 point company. So we'll see what we get today.
We've had one passing grade.
Exactly. So who should we start with? I'm kind of like agnostic about it. So where do you want to start?
I vote GetAccept.
Okay. Sounds
I don't
good.
know. What do you think?
Works for me.
That's what I started with yesterday, so sounds great.
Okay. Sounds great. All right, so let me start with my notes on messaging. Yay, thank you, GetAccept, for volunteering to be a part of this. My overall sense on the messaging was it's like almost there, but not quite there. And the problem that I kept on running into as I was like scrolling through the site is that it's like very feature focused and very solution oriented language. And there wasn't a lot about like the problem. So even on the homepage, there's this line that's like GetAccept's digital sales room platform creates an authentic buying experience. And that sort of like pinged this little red flag in my head, which is like, has a prospect ever come to your organization and said, gosh, I really want that authentic buying experience? Or like, I don't have an authentic buying experience right now. Can you solve that for me? And it felt like sort of like very glossy, and it was nice lingo, I suppose, but it really felt like there was a mismatch between the way prospects might talk about their problems and the way that the messaging was articulated through the site. But it's really interesting, and this happens on some different companies. As I was going through, it was either the tour page or the specific like the digital sales room page was really like head and shoulders above different, right? So like the digital sales room like solutions page starts off with create a secure shared space for your business dialogues. Like that, sure, okay. Not only I understand what it is, there's a clear problem that people are talking about. Like, oh, is this going to be secure? Can I share all the things with my stakeholders? All of those sorts of like messaging problems were pretty clear to me through the website. So I found like the specific pages were better about showing. I think the way like Josh Braun articulates this is like what's the before story and then what's the after story. I think there's a lot of after story language and not a lot of before story language on GetAccept, and I wanted to see more before story messaging. And the way that would show up for me, and sort of the thing that I was really just like looking for, is more like jobs to be done language. So if there's like a jobs to be done interview, going out and doing customer interviews or prospect interviews, and then just like using the ways people are talking about navigating a sale and using that for the language. I feel like a lot of it becomes a little too jargony. And so as I was scrolling through, I kind of understood what it did on the homepage, but not really. And it took some like digging to really figure out what was going on at GetAccept. And I see like Marcio had added a comment of like the language is too complex. I felt that. I wouldn't say complex. I just felt like jargony. Like I didn't really understand exactly what they were doing, and without some like serious time invested. So those are my overall notes on the messaging aspect, at least. And I think my score out of 10 is like an even 5. I think that there's a lot of room for improvement. I think there's some good fundamentals there. I think the interior pages are a lot better than the homepage or some of the top level pages. And but overall, there's still, I think, a lot more to do, especially that like authentic buying experience thing for me sort of just pings like, oh, what prospect says that? So that 5 out of 10 for me on messaging.
Which page did you say that authentic line was on?
That's on the homepage. It's underneath the subheader, your complete digital sales room solution. It's the paragraph text right beneath that. Now they might be A/B testing it, so maybe I got that.
I think they're A/B testing it. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, the
interesting
authentic line. Interesting.
Uh-huh.
That doesn't even seem like it's the real. What is an authentic buying experience versus? I feel like there's better adjectives you could use there.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Interesting.
How
It's
about
interesting to hear your take on it too, because I mean, I'm not a product marketer, but I think my big picture between the two of them was that it seemed clearer to me, like what they do. But what I'm hearing you say is that it's also general, right?
Yeah, I found it maybe a little generic. A lot of what I found,
Generic.
I don't mean to be like, I don't know, incredulous about this, but I found some of this to sort of be buzzy. So at least on the homepage that I got, and I saw Tara commented A/B testing. So yeah, there's some A/B. At least on the homepage that I got was break through the noise and engage your buyer with a custom introduction video, live chat, or a text reminder with like the header, put a face to the name. And my immediate thought was, wow, that sounds like something a marketer would think a seller wants without actually like it sounds buzzy to me basically. And it sounds general without being like a very, here's the specific problem that solve. There's just like different small messaging massaging there that I would experiment with basically to like, is there a different way we could talk about custom introduction videos instead of just break through the noise? Like everybody's talking about break through the noise. So like how's this different?
That makes sense.
Content, shall we?
Me next? Okay.
Yes.
I was gonna play DJ again today, but I couldn't. I was trying to find songs that fit, but GetAccept is just like get free.
Oh,
maybe.
uh-huh.
Yeah, let's see. Because I got off that. What was I playing last time? Just jiggle jiggle the whole time, right?
I think it was, yeah. It was just
repeat.
jiggle jiggle. Yeah, uh-huh.
I gotta find my next one. Let's see. Yeah, but before we jumped on live, I said you two aren't going to be happy with my scores, and you might see why after we get to Deal Hub. A little bit of a teaser there. First up, what I wrote down was holy SEO traction, Batman. Like between last October and this October, they went from like 15K, at least what I'm seeing on SEMrush. Obviously, I don't have their actual analytics, but went from 15K to like 450K in organic traffic, at least what it's showing on SEMrush. Which I wasn't really seeing how. I mean, they have a good amount of keywords, but not a ton on the first page, and not a ton that have a super high volume. The one thing I was seeing is they are ranking for a lot of branded keywords, and there's a healthy amount of volume around their branded keywords, which would probably point to either earned media or social or some kind of in the awareness stage, whatever they're doing, they're working because folks are searching not just for GetAccept, but also specific terms, including GetAccept. But then besides the branded keywords, I'd be curious to see what conversion from that organic traffic looks like. I don't imagine it's great because they are ranking. They're not ranking for a ton of buyer intent keywords where it's highly specific to what somebody would be looking for in a solution like GetAccept. So I mean, they have things like sales collateral examples, sales challenges, proactive sales that are top of page 1. So like more general educational type keywords rather than, I mean, we'll get to Deal Hub in a bit, but it's kind of night and day the types of keywords that they're ranking for and going after. So long story short, it seems like they're getting a healthy amount of SEO traffic, but I'd be curious to know what conversion there would look like, and if they could maybe go deeper and more granular with their topics and their keywords to boost conversion there and actually provide that value front and center.
Mm-hmm.
On that, I think a lot of what's missing is focused, in-depth content. The example I pulled out is at the top of the blog page, there's how to overcome modern sales challenges. And they have the 3-minute read, 4-minute read, 5-minute read little tag under it. This is a 5-minute read. Like, are we really going to authoritatively talk about overcoming modern sales challenges in 5 minutes?
Oh no.
And what they offer with specific content that speaks to that, instead of just the content that stays up here at the high level, right?
Do you want to repeat that really quick? Because your internet broke up just a little bit.
Were you laughing at my frozen face? Love it. A lot of the blog content stays at the high level. How to overcome modern sales challenges. What is proactive sales? Things like that, versus going a few levels deeper into specific elements of what they do, what they offer, and the challenges that their audience is running into, right?
Mm.
On the positive side, the learning hubs they have are really cool. Like they orient around, remote selling, sales enablement, electronic signatures, and digital sales rooms. And it's this whole designed page that kind of can take you a few levels deep. I think that's really cool how they designed that. And then within that, I think they have a great approach for their ebooks, kind of in contrast to the blogs. I mean, their ebooks are super well designed, very engaging, to the point, not fluffy. The one example is selling to the C-level, and they have for like for CRO, CMO, CEO, like tips, specific tips broken down, with very visual and very engaging, very scannable. So it's kind of in contrast to the high level, vague type of content that's on the blog. So the question mark is maybe bringing more of that, having ebooks into their top of funnel content and make it more front and center. Like they have great infographics, like let's use that more. So long story short, seems like they're missing an opportunity on intent-based keywords, and the opportunity to lean on the quality that they have in their ebooks and guides and pull that into the rest of their content. And awesome. I feel like I'm always more generous than the rest of you. I'm 6 out of 10.
I don't know if that's generous. That's realistic. Yeah.
It's higher than yours, and higher. I think higher. If it was just the blog content, it'd be lower. But I think the ebooks and the guides and the infographics are great and super unique.
I didn't feel like I see that very often, where you've like it all separated out like that, like the blog content library, events and webinars, like all separated. I don't know.
That's actually
like in the resources. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it was interesting. I wonder like how much of that is just oriented for like the SEO traffic too, where it's like we're really just trying to get pings on specific articles instead of like in between different ones. I don't know how. This is actually something I've never asked you on one of these before, Brooklyn, but like a question I have on like, let's just pull up a blog article really quick. The one you had mentioned, like how to overcome modern sales challenges. On the bottom, there's like, you may also like sort of recommended posts or like previous story, next story links. Do you have any like thoughts about designing that in a meaningful way to sort of like bring people to other relevant content? Like how many options should be provided to like keep them going deeper? Or if something's like a real deep dive, do you even need that? I don't know. I just wanted to pick your brain.
I think it's always a good idea. I don't imagine the click through on like that footer you may also like is super high. So what we'll typically do is pull it in higher up in the content and make it hyper specific to what the content is talking about. Like if there's a section talking about establishing trust, then make a little call out instead of just an internal link inline link. Make a little call out saying like, want to go deeper on establishing trust with your buyers? Here's our more in-depth guide on it. And you can do that 3 or 4 times throughout the content. I think the engagement there would probably be higher.
That's a cool idea. I like that. Sweet. Sam.
Social?
Yeah.
Social.
Awesome. So my first impression, like pulling up their LinkedIn profile, like I was excited to see that they're posting every day. Overall, like I got a very conversational vibe. Like it looks like their team gets together a lot and has a lot of fun. Like tons of team posts doing cool things. And yeah, so like in terms of what I saw, like immediately that what I thought was working, like they're great at showing off their team in creative ways. I thought they make announcements even fun, like their mentorship program. Like they have a fun sense about that was my first impression. There's a lot of different formats, like videos, photos, memes. It's visually appealing. Lots of video content, which I thought was really cool, and you don't always see a bunch. And yeah, their mini video series on how to increase your hit rate. That was probably like my favorite thing that I saw as I was going through, because they weren't really like asking for anything. They just, had somebody sharing tips on video, which I thought was awesome. And in terms of like what I thought could be improved, I took like a sampling of 20 posts and tried to see like what their ratio of like promotion to giving ratio was. So I took like 20 posts and 11 of them were what I would consider like posts that giving, which I thought was so like maybe like 50-50. And I thought that was pretty good compared to what I see a lot. And six of those were showing off the team. And I was surprised because only one of them was their podcast. And that podcast post had like fantastic engagement. And then they shared 3 blog posts, but those were more promotional. Like they were what I would consider promotions. They weren't like sharing a helpful insight necessarily from the blog. It was more of a teaser and like get the rest by clicking the link. So I thought that a big opportunity could be bringing that ratio like more to like 75% giving, not 50%, and then having those like cool announcements and stuff and asks mixed in. And I think the big opportunity, repurposing their content. So like they're promoting their webinars, but they're not sharing the insights from it afterward. So I think that it would like one, drive more attendance long term, because people would understand like the value of the event and like the caliber of the guests if they're sharing the actual insights after the webinar is over. And like by not promoting and sharing the insights after the webinar, could be missing out on the opportunity to drive the conversation further. So like not actually curating more interesting event topics or pulling in new voices or into that conversation by not sharing those insights. So I just think the promotions are dead ends, and like you don't know what you're missing by not sharing out those insights after the fact.
Yeah.
And then I saw that
they do it with the podcast, but not the webinars, because saw the podcast stuff. You're right, the clips.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I loved the podcast clip. Like there was so much engagement, and that was a huge opportunity. I think like if they're sitting on more clips like that, to just start sharing those out more, because they perform really well and they're really engaging. And then like when you share the blog, I would say like don't just promote it, like pull out the interesting tidbits. And like the same thing goes for the webinars. Like people are going to contribute their own thoughts. They're going to ask questions. There may be like some dialogue that could help create content that the audience is like wanting because they're telling you they want it. Yeah, and then double down on the social specific content, like the mini video series. That I don't think that was, as far as I could tell, connected to some other thing that was going on. So I thought that was awesome. Like, kudos, that was cool. And getting the C-suite a little bit more involved. Like, I think GetAccept knows how to do video content well, from what I see. So like maybe interviewing their own like subject matter experts, pulling some of those clips onto social would be super invaluable. Like, that would be awesome to see. So overall, my rating, I think they're way ahead of the game, like compared to what I see a lot, and they're like on a great track. But there's like a lot, and there's a lot of like lower list things they could do to bring it to the next level. So I gave them a 7 out of 10.
Nice. Nice. Yay. Thank you. That's actually interesting too, to like making, and D'Alessandra had left this comment too, of like working on webinars. Webinars die the moment that you leave the event. She likes podcasts more, but like even just thinking about how can you take the highlights of those webinar events and use them onto social to even maybe promote the next one. There's like infinite opportunity there.
Yeah, definitely.
And to push back on that a bit from.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sam.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just figured we'd have a different take on it. To push back a little bit, Alessandra, it's not like you're taking it and saying, here's the recap of our webinar and here's the highlights or whatever. It's just taking individual clips. Nobody needs to know it was a webinar. All they see is a 90-second clip of somebody explaining a particular topic, right? You just have a lot you can do with it. That isn't just, here's our webinar recap, or here's our podcast transcript that's trussed up as a blog post.
Definitely. And I think it would take a little bit this would take a little bit more of a lift, but if there was a great like snippet or something that you flagged for them, they could probably create it again in an even more engaging way for social. Like, hey, this was amazing. Do you think you could say it in like less than 60 seconds? And I think that would be really valuable for them to even share on their own social. Like if you were on an event and somebody asked you to do that. I just think that it's a cool idea, but it would take a little bit more time to like flag those special moments and help people share them out.
Love all those insights. All right. Well, I'm not as good. Go ahead.
Oh, go for it.
No, I was going to transition to Nick. Did you have something?
Transition? Yeah.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay. Well, I'm not as good at Nick as Nick on inbound stuff, but I have his notes. So he's also in chat. So maybe it's still. So if I'm wrong about any of these, just let me know. Top marks for pricing clarity on the pricing page. I think some of that's reflective of the like a product-led growth strategy. Because at least 2 of those pricing tiers, you can just like click the button and sign up and get going. He had also noted like he would fully expect to tell me about yourself and a feature dump in the demo afterwards if you booked it, which is sort of reflective of the other messaging and some of the content that he had seen on the site. And that's not really a great inbound sales experience. Whether or not that's true remains to be seen. The main thing that was sort of like an interesting, I don't know, red flag on the forum was like it was, or sorry, not red flag, but the good thing about the forum was like it was really straightforward to book a demo. It wasn't asking for a lot of information. It was just looking for like basic amounts of information. There's always ways to like look at making it even easier and like augment the data that somebody's submitting with sales intelligence tools. Because currently, if somebody clicked book a demo, they put in their first and last name, their work email, their phone number, what CRM they're using, how did you hear about us, and then if there's like a partner registration source to book a demo. My immediate thought, like on that is like I almost wonder if the partner registration source could be handled on the back end. And I understand data hygiene's a problem, but like, is that really necessary to book a demo, or could that get handled later? And also some of like the phone number information, especially if you're doing like a video demo, is that necessary immediately? Could you find that information elsewhere? All those, but overall pretty good. Um, the main problem that Nick had identified, which I had noted in my message, is that a lot of the inbound sales motion from like content through the website to actually like book a demo is really, really feature focused and not all that problem focused. So what's interesting is like the main header at the very bottom of my homepage, since we're A/B testing here, says streamline your sales process, and that's like the closest like problem focused header. That's at least pretty straightforward. What was also interesting from these notes is like there's like a book a demo thing at the top, and then there's this sort of, it's not really clear that the create free account, which is in orange, is actually a link. It's not just like a bright header. Sometimes, they're a bright header because it's not necessarily underlined, but you can actually click create free account and it can launch you into their product-led workflow, which felt like a strange user experience given that book a demo was highlighted a lot. So it felt like there's like this product-led motion that's sort of like getting adopted, but then they still have this sales-led motion that is book a demo focused. And just to add confusion to that, the button on the pricing page for professional is book a demo, even though it has pricing clarity. And so my question is, and what had been noted as well, was like, if somebody can sign up for $15 a month without a demo, can somebody sign up for $49 a month without a demo? And then you only have demos for your enterprise companies. It felt like there was some like disjointed ways that people would like actually sign up for the product, and maybe some of that reflects the slow adoption into like a product-led motion, which is what I would suspect is actually happening here, that there's originally an inbound sales-led motion, and then they're kind of tacking on product-led and trying to get it up to speed. So that was sort of an outstanding question mark. And Nick had dropped this in the comments as well, that GetAccept requires a lot more skill from the sellers, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's more outbound focused. I'm hoping their pitch isn't too solution focused. Again, sort of as a reflection of what he had mentioned previously, or what I had restated on his behalf, of like, there's a lot of sort of feature dumping and not necessarily a lot of like clear problem focus. So we wonder if there would be how those account executives navigate the sale and what those conversations sound like as sellers come inbound, particularly for a $49 a month product. Like, that's the other thing that's kind of in the back of my head. Like, what do those conversations sound like? So Nick's score for the inbound on GetAccept was a 5. It's too solution focused and minimal hints to the sandbox that they actually play in.
So again, I gave the highest score out.
You gave a 6. Yeah.
I did a 7.
Yeah. Sam gave a 7.
Oh, a 7. That's right.
No, but this is what's fun, right? Like, oh, we see this thing's good. This is, this is room for improvement, and all the rest of it. Yeah.
That was super interesting to hear. Thanks for those notes, Nick. Because I didn't even know, I was on the pricing page yesterday, and I didn't even notice that on the header, it's just book a demo. They don't even have the create free account. So the tacking on is the product-led motion. That I hadn't even thought about that. That was interesting.
It's cool, and I'm sure it makes lives a lot easier. The other thing that I had noticed, because I was poking around somewhere, Nick just said, which is so true, we weren't on completely opposite sides this round.
We were really close.
Infamously so. That a lot of their sellers actually don't even have like a Sales Navigator Premium. I know we didn't do like a full sales team audit this time, but it was really interesting to see like every once in a while an account executive would have like a sales nav license, but that overall it looked like, and a lot of them of course are in the European market and not necessarily North America. So there's, I don't know, it's interesting to see like it feels like some of that sales motion is still getting up to speed with how buyers are buying today. So, well,
complete aside, I really do like their colors and design.
Yeah.
I think it's super unique for SaaS. Like the bright orange, it just makes me happy.
Love that note. It's a great aside. I also agree. I like it
Bonus
a lot.
points. So what was the total?
Right now, 23 out of 40 for GetAccept. Yay! That sounds like, yes.
It's 26.
We're ready for
Louis Theroux, Cupid Jones,
a little intermission. Quick intermission.
Chickle, and fold. I like to see you wiggle, wiggle.
Okay, I had to do it this once.
That's great. I love it so much. We have the option to add sound somewhere. So we'll need to be able to add that natively in here, and
I want it.
Add it in. All right. Well, thank you, GetAccept, and let's move on to Deal Hub. Yay! Okay. So on Deal Hub, it was interesting because I thought that they did a lot of the messaging better, but then they missed some things that GetAccept nailed. So at dealhub.io, maybe they're also A/B testing, who knows? But the homepage that I got is really straightforward. I felt like my first impression on their homepage was a lot more straightforward than GetAccept's, because I sort of landed and I was like, oh, I understand what this product does. And that's where like back to that like buzzy problem I had mentioned previously, which is like I felt the way that Deal Hub was articulating their product feature set was a lot clearer. I understood they have some like branded names for their products, which I sort of like, I guess, rolled my eyes at, like revenue amplification platform. Like, oh, I mean, okay, come on, really? But even if I didn't understand the acronym, the sub like wording, the sub messaging, even on like CPQ, configure price quotes easily, even for the most complex products. That sounds like the best sales objection handling language I've ever heard, which is, oh, you can't configure prices for my products, or like your suite isn't complex enough because we have this really complex, pricing solution. And it's like, no, just from the get-go. And so that sounds like jobs to be done language for me, or customer interview language. And similarly with like Deal Room, like bring buyers and sellers together to collaborate and close deals. It's sort of like immediately, even if I sort of like glossed over the branded names of like the revenue amplification platform, their subset features I immediately got. There was like no buzziness. It was very clear. And I felt like, oh, that's really nice. The main thing that I continue to struggle with is I wasn't as clear who they were selling to from the marketing side or from their messaging side, because as I scroll down the sales page, it says, enable your sales teams to thrive. Your sales teams will love you because you provide them with the tools. And I was sort of like, there was a section on GetAccept where they even like segmented out like a sales professional, or excuse me, like a sales director, an account executive, and a sales ops professional. And like, it was very clear it was tailored for that. And like, I can look at this, and later it says automate renewal and upsell revenue and make your CFO smile with strict margin approvals. And so I'm immediately thinking like, okay, who's trying to satisfy the CFO, but also like enable their sales team? Like it sounded like there are multiple roles involved that they were trying to accommodate. So like, even though the product feature set was more clearly articulated and a lot easier, it was a little less clear who they were trying to like break into from their marketing side. So again, like bonus points for some. I was kind of like, I don't know who they're trying to sell there. As I was drilling down, their specific solutions pages were really good. I thought that they were pretty straightforward. I sort of can skim read them and even understand what each of the solution products does. As I was looking at their Deal Hub roles, this is sort of a reflection of the problem that they're having, which is if we go to, it's underneath customers and then Deal Hub for roles, they're literally selling to anyone. The roles page lists executives, sales operations, revenue operations, legal, sales, customer success, finance, and marketing. So what it sounds like is they'll take anybody that comes inbound, and we're trying to attract anybody in these roles who understands this problem. And I felt like, I don't know, I felt like it was a miss in some ways. I wonder if there was an opportunity to sort of like drill down on a couple of their best customers and sort of like do a win-loss analysis internally, figure out of those roles or personas whose tends to be the champion, and then tailor their you-focused messaging to those specific roles. Because otherwise I feel like they're sort of, it's not the curse of like selling to everyone necessarily because the product feature set is really clear, but it sort of feels like, oh, we'll sort of take a lot of people and we will happily sell to anybody who recognizes this problem. So my overall score for messaging, because of the bonuses and the minuses, is just 1 point more than GetAccept, is 6 out of 10. I felt like if they had better targeting and tailoring about who they would sell to, they would easily be at like an 8 out of 10. It just felt like reading through a page, if I was like a sales ops professional, like 50% of it might speak to me. And that feels like a real way to shoot yourself in the foot from a messaging perspective, I guess, to attract a lot of people of a specific role, but then only have half of the selling language focused on that. But conversely, that extra point is that clarity, I think, from the lingo and like, oh, I understood what this product does pretty quickly. So.
Yeah, it says above the logo, the marquee logo is trusted by leading RevOps teams, but it's like this little, it's not as highlighted as it could be, right?
And then my question is like, if it's RevOps, like, is the champion buyer the CRO or is it a director of RevOps? Like, and not necessarily like you have to be that intentional, but if I was crafting a landing page for a CRO versus the director of RevOps or a program manager inside RevOps, I would write it really differently because of the ways that those RevOps people are thinking about those problems. That's all.
Do you, just a quick question for you on that one. Do you think leaning into like that one line, your sales team will love you, for more of the messaging would be a good idea? Or is there room for cheese there? Because like ops versus sales, tale as old as time, right? So like lean into that actually.
I don't mind it. I mean, you know, it's one of those things where like, I don't mind the cheese, especially if it resonates or it delights or makes people smile or go, oh yeah, that's so true. Or, oh, I definitely love that. Like, of course, let's do it. I think the problem is just that like there's on like one page, it sounds like they're trying to sell to a few different people. So I would, if that is the persona they're trying to sell to, then they should just like lean into that and like deliver that even hammier, even, you know, I'd be down for some ham.
So much meme fodder there too, Sam.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how this translates to oh no, your glasses.
It just
how
fell
this
apart.
translates to social, because you know, like the opening line is like top rated CPQ, CLM, and digital deal rooms for all CRMs. Which for social is just a little but I really like some of that messaging on the front page. I think could could pull through to the LinkedIn profile a little bit to like understand what they do a little bit better. But
I actually really liked their like deliver one fluid sales motion headline. I think that's like really crispy and really straightforward and a good like attention grabber. So
I agree.
yeah.
Crispy.
Anyways, Brooklyn content as your glasses have fallen apart.
I know the screw fell out yesterday.
Oh no!
And they chose right now to just completely give up. So
Oh no!
Thankfully, I'm nearsighted, so this should be okay. I might need to lean in here. Yeah. So content, they have a lot lower traffic than GetAccept. I think it was like 7K, between 7 and 10K, but inverse to GetAccept, it seemed to be ranking super well for high intent keywords, things like CPQ, deal desk, deal stream, e-signature, guided selling, all the Salesforce related stuff, like even Salesforce CPQ, they're page 1, all of those are page 1. So I imagine conversion for inbound search traffic is pretty good and higher. I think that's a result of going a few levels deeper with a lot of their content, like I was talking about earlier. Like a lot of their articles start with how CPQ and CLM enhances ... avoid CPQ adoption failure by ... reduce sales higher ramp up time by 85%. So they did have some high level posts, like 10 ways to do XYZ, but it was sprinkled in with some pretty specific topics and if not long tail keywords, at least pretty intentional keywords, right? So that was cool to see. The additional resources section is great. They have a glossary, which I imagine does wonders for their SEO as well. Like they're #1 for agile CPQ, again with the high intent thing. The infographics are cool and detailed and all ungated. Their ebooks and guides are ungated too, which we don't want to get into that. But the one thing I was missing, and this is, it seems a consistent thing. Like the two companies we compare are usually like the inverse of each other, right? So if we talked about GetAccept, the top of funnel content being a little fluffy, but then their ebooks being pretty great, figuring out ways to pull that through. I almost saw the opposite with Deal Hub, where they had pretty specific topics for their blog, but then their ebooks and guides, even though they're ungated, I mean, the blunt way of putting it is I'm glad they're ungated, because if it was gated and I was a sales leader and I gave my info and that's the guide I got, I'd click out of it and wouldn't be consuming more content anytime soon, right? Because they're not fulfilling the promise. So one example is Ultimate Guide to RevOps. But it's really not an ultimate guide to RevOps. It's ultimate guide to why RevOps people might like Deal Hub. And it's like very product marketing-esque in their guides, which I'm a content marketer. Like if you're working with product marketing and that's working great, if you're going to do long form content, make it super in-depth and make it super helpful. And that's not what this one's doing. Same for, what was the other one they had? Consolidate. It wasn't Ultimate Guide, but something like that on consolidating your sales stack, an ebook, right? But I think 4 or 5 pages in, it was consolidate your sales stack by using Deal Hub instead of all these other tools, and like comparing it, which is fair enough. The visuals were cool. I think it works well for product marketing, but if you're creating content to try to be helpful, maybe revisit some of those longer form pieces. Yeah, there was an exception. They have a CPQ project template, like a whole deck that you could just take and run with. So looking at that, I think that's a much better example of where to go, but it wasn't the majority of it. So I just go in on those types of pieces, like the CPQ project deck. Anyway, the reason I said you wouldn't be happy with my scores is I'm giving it the same score as GetAccept because they felt like the inverse of each other. So 6 out of 10 for the same reasons, just flipped as GetAccept.
Sweet. That makes
Nice.
sense. It's also funny you bring that up too, which is like, which is a great hot take. I love it. I'm glad these are ungated because they're just sort of product marketing literature. But that's really common. I don't know if it's increasingly common, but I see that so often with companies that are like trying to boost their like product knowledge, and they're just like, I don't know. Here's why we're better. Here's a free, here's a bait and switch sort of PDF thing.
It does feel like bait and switch.
Mm.
I mean, it's great. The visual, like they had a visual where it was where Deal Hub covers it from all the different stages, and then other sales engagement platforms like Outreach. And it was really cool to see it laid out. It's really compelling, but it does feel like a switch. Like should be in a sales conversation, not a piece of content that I'm trying to learn from.
Mm-hmm. Or create a piece of content with just like, here's how Deal Hub, integrates or solves these problems.
Yeah, and just own it as product marketing. Yeah.
Totally. Okay, sweet. Well, thank you. Sam, to social?
Yeah. So first impression, I like starting with that. I like their branding. I like how like their images aren't static. Like there was a lot of animation. It was fun to look at, but like it did start to blend all together as I was like scrolling through their feed. It felt like there was just a lot of the like corporate imagery promotions type going on. I noticed a lot of webinars, like the word webinar is pretty big on like all through quite a few of the posts. And yeah, overall, like I felt like there were a lot of promotions. So it was refreshing when I would come upon like a team update or saw that they did promote their Revamp podcast. So like looking at that promotion to giving ratio, I did that with GetAccept. So I thought it was fun. But more like 90-95% promotions and more like the 5-10% on like giving valuable insights, just giving interesting things for their audience and their social on LinkedIn. So I think the opportunity is in like they have a lot of content in their learning hub, the guides, the blogs, the podcast, the infographics. But like if I'm just a follower on LinkedIn, I'd probably never know that those existed. So big opportunity, I think, to pull those through to LinkedIn. Yeah, and all the ops memes. And like it doesn't have to be a huge lift. I don't know if they have somebody dedicated, like focused on social media, but even like some copy paste type stuff to get the process started, like looking at an article, thinking about what stood out most, and then like sharing that just as it is on LinkedIn, like maybe tweaking the formatting so it looks good, making the sentences shorter and choppier, but putting what they've got to work on LinkedIn because it's just not there. And yeah, I noticed they did have audiograms of their podcast, so I think it would be cool if they took advantage of those. But instead of making the caption about promoting the entire episode, like I would think about how to reframe or expound on like what's being said in the clip. That way, like people are learning something from the post, even if they don't like listen or watch, just adding more of that, like we're giving away some of these insights. And yeah, as far as like their leadership showing up on social, I did notice like their CEO shows up every day on social, and their CRO and their CMO almost every day, like pretty frequently too. But it's mostly like company related announcements. So the same thing here is what I was saying with like GetAccept, just like finding ways to extract their thoughts, like what they're thinking about, and then helping them translate those into engaging posts for Deal Hub's LinkedIn, and their personal profiles would be like even greater because they're already showing up. They have the audience. So giving a little bit more there. My rating, this is really hard. But I think like a 3 out of a 10, because like they're showing up on social, but not like giving back to their audience. It's more selfish on their profile. So yeah,
Harsh takes. No,
That was the nicest possible way you could have given a 3. Like, this was so hard, but
yeah. It's great. I love it. Well,
lots
hey,
of opportunity. That's what we've been calling these.
It's why people come here. We're not gonna tell you what something. We're gonna tell you the truth. That's for sure. That's awesome. Shall we do inbound really quick before we close out?
Mm-hmm.
So, Nick also commented like the user experience flow to actually like get a demo is pretty straightforward. There isn't any PLG plus demo motion. It's basically all demo. They're supposedly designed for midsize and enterprise businesses. Whatever midsize means is yet to be determined, given that the pricing is not visible. So the thing that had stood out to us is that as we looked at, what's interesting is when you look at their feature suite and you see the revenue application platform, and then you see CPQ, contract management, subscription management, and deal room. And deal room's like the fourth and always mentioned the last. But when you go to their pricing page, deal room's number 1. And it was this like weird, like it's actually like just deal room and deal hub CPQ. So it seems like it's designed for somebody to like go through a specific product page and then request a demo. Because if you click request a demo from there, it just sends you to their demo forum. Whereas if you go to the pricing page, I don't know if they're still like altering how they're doing product marketing or how they're doing their pricing thing. But they're it was very interesting to see like deal room called out as this like one of 2 solutions, even though the rest of the site there's like 4 different solutions nominally, but 3 of them are grouped seemingly under one. But their demo flow is awesome, and it is really straightforward. It's like a number of clicks in a row. Basically, how many seats do you expect you need? What CRM are you using? And then company name, email, phone, first and last name, and then how did you hear about us? So like a really straightforward one screen right after the other. So you get all that information, and it doesn't feel like a super long form to fill out either, because it sort of cycles through those screens, which is a cool way to do a demo flow where you're asking for more information than you might see in another form. And that allows them to like pre-qualify. The only interesting thing that I had noticed is like, supposedly they sell to midsize and enterprise, but even if you go from if you select 0 to 9 seats and then you select like an other CRM, you can still go through their demo form and submit it. Which I don't know if that's like, if there's some sort of like back end routing thing and there's like auto disqualification on the back end, and we're going to get an email, at some other time, because elsewhere on their site, and Nick had dropped this into chat, of like talking about enterprise, but starting at 10 users was confusing. So it was sort of like, once again, like, who are you trying to sell to sort of problems. And if you're not going to sell your product to somebody who only needs 2 seats, maybe then use the demo flow to disqualify them at that point of submission, instead of, letting them submit that information and having that data somewhere. That's a thought. But also, these are some of the unknowns as, gets into like all of the different variable selections of how they're like doing stuff on the back end. So, and additionally, some of the more problem focused language helped with that overall inbound process. So Nick gave a score of a 6 out of 10 for Deal Hub. So I believe 1 point more than GetAccept, just given that they're everything's a little bit clearer. The demo flow is super cool, but it seems like there's some strange targeting issues, and it would be interesting to see like what kinds of calls the account executives are entertaining. Because if like an account executive's calendar gets all booked up with a bunch of disqualified deals, or like deals are going to disqualify anyways, like why is that ending up on their calendar basically? So
We're close again, Nick.
yeah,
Same on this one. Refreshing.
It is. Well, the final score then for Deal Hub today is a 21 out of 40. And then so this head-to-head matchup, GetAccept narrowly ekes out a couple point win. Yay! But it, as I think theme of today is, no, that's fine. I love the theme music. You can turn it on anytime. The theme of today is that there's a lot of opportunity for improvement.
That's our new motto internally. I love that you pulled that out, Sam. We like.
What is it, as opposed to problems or something?
Yeah, it's opportunity for learning.
Yeah, it's an Yeah, this isn't a problem. It's an opportunity for learning.
Yeah,
this isn't stressful.
Learning opportunity.
I love that. Well, any last thoughts before we close out this hour?
I think you summed it up well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining on this. Thank you to everyone who joined today. And we'll see you on the next Content Power Hour.
Sounds great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks.